Coming up on market shares, the government shutdown has entered day 3 with the Senate vote expected this afternoon. What to expect if the measures are blocked again.
And multiple White House nominees are withdrawn with questions of what's next for the administration.
And as the tax credit expires, markets faced a mixed week. Hold on to your wallets because market share starts right now. Good afternoon and welcome into Market Shares. I'm Ben Bassick.
And I'm Riley Underwood. Let's get right into our market update. And right now, all the markets, as the markets closed this Friday, they all ended in green so far, even despite the government shutdown.
It's a good thing to see, Riley. It's not often we get all three indexes here in the green this week, so it's a good thing to see, especially with the tech-heavy NASDAQ right there, too.
And also, the government shutdown may be looming a little bit over people's heads, but right now it doesn't seem to be affecting much. The only thing it's really affecting is you may get a little delay on those jobs reports, on those inflation reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and census information. So maybe investors are more going on their feeling rather than the actual hard stats. So right now, confidence is high.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing, and we have seen over the past few times the government has shut down, is the markets kind of have become numb to that headline because it really doesn't have a material impact on the markets themselves in the short term. And we saw this week the tech-heavy NASDAQ being propped up with big deals with Meta and Microsoft. They're increasing contracts for computing capacity chips, more data center build-outs, so lots of investments happening in the AI sector. And we also have a lot of investors expecting more interest rates cuts later this month. We saw it come out of the Fed already. And so they're kind of perspective about CPI going up as those interest rates fall.
All three markets up right now as the final bells ring. And let's take a look at our first market mover. This one not so green so far. It's Palantir, a major defense contractor for the United States government. They benefited heavily from this Golden Dome project that Donald Trump is putting into action. They sell data analytics tools that are used by the Department of Defense for intelligence gathering, counterterrorism, everything like that. The reason they were going up, actually, you see this dip. The reason it doesn't look very much on this graph is because it's selling at $174. So that slip is actually much more drastic than it may seem. And that slip is because the U.S. Army actually put out a statement that said some of the software that Palantir had developed for them, serious holes. They wouldn't know if a security breach had happened. They wouldn't be able to tell. So maybe investors that were really high on Palantir now slipping a little bit.
Yeah, defense and private contractors have gained big under this administration, especially with all the movement we're seeing off the coast of Venezuela and the Caribbean Sea. We're seeing even Boeing coming out with more military technologies for the U.S. government, and we'll probably likely see more investments going in the future with the Trump administration. But kind of moving on to another stock that's been pretty tied closely to this administration is Tesla. Down this week about almost 5% here. Tesla's coming off a really good week with this tax credit they had for EV vehicles. It was $7,500 from the federal government. That expired on September 30th. Now we're in October. What Tesla's going to have to see is can they keep that same level of business they had when this tax credit was out, but also when Elon Musk was frequenting the White House and kind of had more influence when it came to policy. Now, a lot of Tesla competitors, we're talking Ford, GM, Hyundai, they're footing the cost of this tax credit for their consumers, and so those prices are going to stay stable on their end. Will it stay the same for Tesla? We'll have to see. Rivian, which is a close Tesla competitor, especially when it comes to the energy battery industry, which Tesla is very much heavily investing and focusing in, their forecast was pretty gloom and pretty rough going forward. So without that tax credit, it's going to really reshape the EV industry because it's kind of the first time that EVs are being forced to do it on their own, and they're being left out in the water, and it's saying, hey, can you prop up? Is there a market demand for this without federal government tax credit and an interference?
Well, we had two in the red. How about our last market mover? That's in the green. That's Nike. And they had been struggling in the past few years, but they're up 1% year over year earnings. So that was good look for investors. They seemed high on Nike. You see that jump on September 30th to October 1st. That was because of that 1% year over year revenue increase. They are actually down on the year to date, but they're up 31% for the 6-month outlook. So a bit of a slippery road for Nike. It has been in the past few months, but right now they're looking up. They say they're developing a new content strategy to kind of boost those ratings, but everywhere you look, you see Nike.
Yeah, you mentioned that content strategy. They're really consolidating the brands of Nike, Jordan, and Converse into one right now with that CEO, Elliott Hill, who took over last fall. And they're also an example of a company that's really weathering these tariffs well. I mean, there's a tariff of 46% on Vietnam, and that's where they get a lot of their goods from. And their CFO did say it's going to have a $1.5 billion impact on their company from tariffs, but it's not showing to investors and it's not showing in the stock market. We've actually seen very few goods and very sectored goods that have increased because of tariffs, but still they're kind of relying on those back supply chains that they built up before that Liberation Day came into effect.
And those tariffs were actually increased what they were expecting to cost Nike. They were expecting it to cost maybe $1 billion. Right now, $1.5 billion for Nike, but still it's not affecting it. People are still buying those Jordans.
Yeah, some other companies are going to have to take some tariff notes. But coming up on market shares, Pfizer is agreeing to lower prescription drug costs for Medicaid in a deal with Trump. How the new Trump RX website may affect your wallet when we return. Welcome back to Market Shares. Well, White House nominees selected to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission are now withdrawn due to political resistance. The president chose E.J. Antoni to replace the former commissioner, Era McIntyre, who was fired by the Trump administration hours after the release of weak jobs data. Antoni's background is quite different from past commissioners, most of them being veteran economists. Antoni, on the other hand, received his PhD in economics in 2020 and has not published any formal academic research since.
Meanwhile, Brian Quintenz confirmed in a statement that he was no longer Trump's nominee to lead the CFTC, an agency with a major role in overseeing cryptocurrency markets. His nomination stalled after Bitcoin billionaire brothers Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, the founders of Gemini, turned against him. His nomination also came under fire for gambling industry groups who are weary of his role as the advisor to Kalshi, a CFTC-regulated prediction market that has overstepped the industry by launching sports betting contracts. It doesn't seem like it. What's the public sentiment been looking like when you go into this government shutdown? Nothing's happening right now. What are the public saying?
Almost 1 million people, first off, have been furloughed. And furloughed pretty much means that they are without pay, not fired necessarily, but not getting paid. So right now, the public sentiment is not high, especially when you look at it from a Democratic perspective. Way back in 2013, one of the longer government shutdowns over the Obama era, it was 76% of Democrats wanted a compromise, no shutdown. You move forward to 2025, now that number is at just 52%, with 47% saying standing on principles, not letting the Republican Party walk all over them, which they kind of have been in the early parts of this Trump term.
Yeah, you mentioned those people getting furloughed. That's 40% of federal civilian employees.
Yeah.
And they are going to get paid retroactively, which you mentioned. But in a lot of the time, in the meantime, I mean, they don't have a paycheck until the government opens back up. But I want to ask, why are the Dems holding out? I mean, we saw this last time Schumer caved to those Republican principles and ideas. He's not doing the same this time. The government shut down.
The main reason is health care, and it's one of the most fought over things in politics, and it's been like that for a long time, and it continues to happen. The Democrats want to extend expiring Affordable Care Acts, premium tax credits, and reverse Medicaid cuts, where on the other side, the Republicans want to make a short-term funding resolution with a continuing resolution with the one change of this, Medicaid cuts rather than the Democrats who would rather have it be the same way. So it's interesting to see how just one issue makes this entire thing break down and kind of shows you the current state of politics right now in the country.
That is interesting. It all comes down to the budget, and you said healthcare, the big issue this time. One thing you mentioned that it hasn't happened without a continuing resolution since 1997. So is this pretty much a foregone conclusion that we're going to the continuing resolution?
Continuing resolutions is not the problem. I mean, that's not the issue, because that just means that last year's budget rolls over to this year, which inherently isn't a problem. It pretty much gives them more time to work out an agreement between the two sides. What is concerning is that there's almost 400,000 furloughed in the defense sector. In agriculture, almost 80% working are furloughed. These are real people with real jobs who are not getting paid at this point. That affects the markets, that affects people's livelihood, and at the end of the day, some side has to agree to a compromise before this gets resolved. Back in 2018, it was the longest shutdown in government history. It was over 30 days. That was under President Trump as well. Something's got to give. And just 20 minutes ago, a vote was made. Still no resolution, still no 60 votes.
Yeah, I mean, we know things aren't known to happen quickly in Congress,
No.
so I don't see this government shutdown being any different. But the big thing this time is they really are holding out on those tax credits. I mean, Schumer caved last time. He's not doing it this time. And Republicans are saying, hey, this is a clean bill. This is a CR to keep the government open. But they're completely open to shutting it down as well. Trump
They're
said
staunch.
he's prepared to shut it down. And it, like you said, Drew, it is going to impact people locally when it comes to SNAP benefits and the Department of Agriculture food grants that hit, especially here in Syracuse, when it comes to the Department of Education and student loans. And what I think is also interesting is we're seeing policy come out of the executive branch that goes in direct contrast to the things that the shutdown is going to do. I mean, slowdowns with visa processing when the Trump administration just rolled out a new H-1B visa process.
Right.
Slowdowns with the Fed and interest rate cuts when the SBA can't give out loans. So they're going to have this contradiction with those two forces coming together.
Right, Ben. You know, for example, if you go to the Department of Housing and Urban Development website right now, big red banner says the radical left in Congress is the reason why this government shutdown is happening. Both parties in staunch contrast with each other. It's the same thing happening in the Department of State. If you go to websites over there, these are affecting real Americans. And if you just want to localize things a little bit, here to Syracuse University, everything is still due as far as student loans. But if you call FAFSA and say, I have a problem with student loans, they're not going to answer the phone. And that's really kind of a cataclysm of what's happening right now in the government.
Interesting stuff, Drew. Thank you so much for breaking it down. Well, the Trump administration has canceled nearly $8 billion in funding for climate-related projects in primarily blue states. This move came just hours after the administration froze around $18 billion in federal funding for two major infrastructure projects in New York City. So staying on the tariffs, who's actually going to feel the impact of these new drug tariffs and the Trump Rx program? Are we leaning toward the patients or the actual pharmaceutical companies? Thank you so much, Carolina. Well, coming up on Market Shares, video game giant Electronic Arts is in the midst of an unprecedented $55 billion buyout. What this means for your favorite games. Welcome back to Market Shares. Well, Google has joined Apple in removing apps that can be used to anonymously report sightings of ICE agents and other law enforcement agencies. An app known as ICE Block allows users to alert others nearby about sightings of ICE in the area. The FBI said that the gunman involved in the attack on a Dallas ICE facility last week had recently searched for apps tracking ICE agents on his phone. ICE Block has been downloaded more than 1 million times since it was introduced this year and hit a high of over 110,000 downloads in a single day. So Ethan, it seems like the Saudis are increasingly getting involved in Western affairs. You see them with golf, you see them with Cristiano Ronaldo getting signed to the Middle East. So what is Saudi Arabia doing now they're getting involved in Madden, NFL, and college football? Why are they doing this?
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is really trying to push to be more legitimized and accepted in Western culture. This is not the first time that they have invested in video game companies. They also have investments in Nintendo, Scopely, SNK, Take-Two, and many more. They also have investments in the Esports World Cup. And as you mentioned, this is not just about video games, this is about sports. They have huge investments in the sports world. They are hosting the 2036 World Cup. They, as you said, have major investments on golfers in the Live Golf Tour, trying to pull players away from the American PGA Tour. They also have the Saudi Soccer League with Cristiano Ronaldo. And about a month ago, they announced with Fanatics a big football event with players such as Tom Brady and other current and former NFL players for a big flag football event to be hosted in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so Ethan, I mean, Saudi Arabia is getting involved in Western affairs when it comes to politics, culture, sports, now even comedy. I saw there's a comedy show coming up soon. What is this push? What's the reasoning behind kind of this increasing deal on the international level with more Western companies and culture ideas?
Yeah, they're for a while that Saudi Arabia is kind of seen as a pariah in culture. They're within the country itself, they're kind of being more liberal with their rules with women and social issues. But this comedy event, there are many big names that you've heard of. Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, and Pete Davidson, among about 20 others that are participating in it. But it's not coming without its critics. It's coming on the 7th anniversary of the assassination of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Many critics, including Shane Gillis, who was offered to be a part of it, he said he took a, quote, principled stand against it. He was offered almost $1 million, he was said. But he's being criticized these comedians are being criticized for legitimizing a government that represses independent voices in journalism and speech, and it's really become a controversial issue.
Well, it's interesting. I didn't even know they would understand the comedy those comedians would do. I don't know they would understand American comedy, but I guess they'll probably sell out arenas there.
I mean, and Shane Gillis, they circled back and doubled his offer, and he still backed out. So it really is a contentious issue. Now, when it comes to EA specifically, 70% of Saudi Arabia's population is under the age of 35 years old, and they're saying, oh, we want to increase with the youth, we want to increase engagement with millennials and youth who are engaging with things like sports through video games.
Yeah, I mean, I know I personally, after the show, I'm going to go home and play college football on my Xbox and play an EA Sports game like that, and it's going to be a real way to get into the lives of Western American culture. I know many Americans are playing on EA Sports games and other EA games that aren't sports, and being able to get into this field is a great way to get into American lives.
So how's the dynasty looking?
Syracuse is looking pretty good on my
team. They're looking good? They're looking good? All right.
Well, you're going to go play the sports game. I got some more songs to listen to, because coming up on Market Shares, pop star Taylor Swift's 12th studio album was released at midnight. How Swiftonomics is taking effect again. Welcome back to Market Shares. Well, Riley, are you ready for it? Because Taylor Swift's 12th studio album hit the shelves today and hit record numbers as expected. The album had more than 5 million pre-saves on Spotify, surpassing her own 2024 record as the most pre-saved album in history.
And if you purchased the Taylor Swift vinyl, well, you're in luck. Vinyl records, CDs, and cassettes are spared from the Trump administration's tariffs. A Cold War-era enactment known as the Berman Amendment to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act prevents presidents from regulating the flow of informational materials, a category that includes physical musics, books, and artwork, and in this case, Taylor Swift album.
There she goes, and she wins again. She comes out on top again. I am super excited for this album.
I know you are.
I don't know about you.
Well, you know, you've been talking about it all week.
I have.
I'm not really quite keeping up, but I know you got it covered.
I mean, but the pure economic impact of something like an album, I think, often goes unsighted. When we saw the Eras tour, I mean, there were so many cities that had their hotel industries and restaurant industries and hospitality industries in total propped up by tenfold after that era came through. And so the power of this on the shelves, that's something like a Target, that's going to increase revenue substantially.
No, we're talking about, I heard Bryson Tiller had an album release too. We're not talking about him. We're talking about Taylor Swift.
He's not Taylor Swift. He's not one of the most, he wasn't top charting number one on Spotify, was he?
No, he wasn't. No.
Have you listened to the album at all, Riley?
No, you know, I know you're going to make me listen to it later.
All right, after this we'll go. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Market Shares. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News. I'm Ben Bassett.
And I'm Riley Underwood. Have a great night, Syracuse.